Good evening, everyone. I am delighted to welcome back Jeff Altman, who's going to chat with us tonight about salary negotiation mistakes. Take it away, Jeff.
Thank you. And let me just check with those of you in the audience. How many of you have managed people and thus been in the position of hiring? Hands up, please. Hands up. Okay. Scott, is your hand up? Let me hear your voice. Okay, I saw a hand. Thank you very much. Robert, no? Never hired anyone. Thank you very much. So when you are in the process of evaluating people, and Scott, if you prefer not to speak out loud, that's okay. You can put this into chat. When you were involved with hiring, you saw things that applicants did wrong. True? So if you would just mention one or two of the things that job applicants did wrong as part of their process, that made you just go, what were they thinking? Or, huh? Or cause you to back out of even extending the offer. Again, for Scott, put it into chat. For the rest of you, feel free to speak up. One thing, come on. Don't be shy. I don't bite hard.
You mean during the interview process, Jeff?
Excuse me?
You mean during the interview process?
Interview process, or when you got to negotiating the offer?
Well, the common one is giving your number first.
Uh-huh. Good, that's one. Anthony,
Repeat your question.
So what sort of mistakes have you seen as a hiring manager that made you just scratch your head and wonder what they were thinking of, or just decide to back away from them based upon their behavior? Anthony, you got one for me?
It wasn't salary related at all. Something the applicant said.
And what was that?
That one? Oh, he said, he emphasized the fact that he was a bodybuilder. And I'm thinking, what does that have to do with the job in construction? I don't get it. And I didn't say that, but I was thinking, that has nothing to do with this position you're applying for.
Pretty amazing, isn't
it?
You know, there used to be a TV show, I think it's back on with a different host, called Kids Say the Darndest Things. Well, job applicants say the darndest things too. And they have profound cases of foot and mouth disease. Lynn, you got one for me? You got a mistake that you remember from the buy side?
It was a very long time ago, so I don't really clearly remember because it was a long time ago. Other than that, I wasn't in the hiring position because I became a K-12 teacher.
Gotcha.
So.
I worked in recruiting for what felt like 100 years. In point of fact, it was 44. So I would hear the stuff that was said both ways. Like many recruiters, I stumbled into the field. And I don't do that work anymore. I now coach people professionally. I also have a YouTube channel at JobSearchTV.com. That's also on Amazon, available to you that way. So if you've got a fireTV or a firestick, you can watch my stuff there. Also, a podcast. It's actually #1 on Apple Podcasts for Job Search with more than 2,200 episodes. And next Saturday is the 11th anniversary of the show. I've heard a lot.
What's it called again, Jeff?
No BS Job Search Advice Radio. It has a little No BS logo on it with Job Search around it. And it comes out 5 days a week. Job Search TV generally has new content 6, and some days there's a double piece of content that comes out. So, you know, I try and help people not just simply as a coach, but to help people with job search, hiring more effectively. Thank you, Lynn. Management, leadership, resolving workplace related issues. And I know as a coach, I'm complicated, but one of the strengths that I have is having been full life cycle from the search process. It's how I could do that interview piece that I've done for different groups, including this one, where I offer a framework for interviewing that's pretty unique and pretty effective. It won't help you be better at what you do, but it will help you perform better on the interview so you can deliver information in a way that the audience will receive it. Now, as a search person, I listen to stories on both sides. And as such, I always think in terms of how could they possibly say that as being a pretty common occurrence. So when I think of how I can help people, one of the things I want to do is help people avoid mistakes. Because one thing you'll learn in recruiting is every situation's a little bit different. So what I might say to one person, the next person may post something similar, but the dissimilarity is enough to change my advice. It's why on my YouTube channel, where I've got 7,000 plus videos, by the way, the playlist for salary negotiation is a few hundred videos. There's just so many variations and so many little nuances that come up. It's why I thought for this presentation, I would just talk in terms of mistakes people make when they negotiate. And the first one is one that I'm just going to bring it to your attention because it's one that we haven't had to think of for a long time. And that is inflation. They make the offer, they say, good news, we want to hire you. That's great. What's the offer? And you look and you see a 3 to 5% raise. Well, as of this morning, inflation's at 6.2 for the last year. And it's on the rise for the simple reason that, well, I'm not going to go into the politics because it's irrelevant here. Inflation is going up. There's a lot of money in the system and prices are going up. If you accept a 5% increase, you're losing money. It's the reality to it. You may be losing less money than if you stayed in your job, but you're losing money with a 5% raise versus one that minimally matches inflation. And I must in all candor say, even in your current organization, if they come to you and say, good news, 3% increase, as so many firms have habitually said for so many years, because inflation has been close to zero, you have the ability to now turn around and say, that's great. I'm only 3% underwater or 3.2% underwater with prices. I'm losing money. Could you try better? Now, your manager may not be willing to do anything, and they may look at you like you have two heads, but what's the problem? You don't want to be a sheep professionally. You don't want to be a victim, and you don't want to head off and message people that they're only giving you 3% raises out without at least fighting for more. So remember, inflation is a variable now that we haven't had to take into consideration for a long time. The second one I'll bring up is mentioning money at the time you're submitting a resume or a cover letter. There's no reason to do that. The focus should be on making them fall in love with you and wanting to ask you out on a date. That's really what the resume, cover letter, everything that you're doing to get yourself in the door is about. It's to try and position yourself so they want to ask you out. And unfortunately, and again, I still see resumes and cover letters in my role as a coach. I see what people put out, and when they're mentioning what they're looking for prematurely, mistake. So don't offer it up until they've had a chance to talk to you. And we'll get to that in a moment. Anthony, I saw you unmute. Do you have a question for me?
Yes, I do. Thank you. Two questions, actually. One, what do you do? What should you say if they ask you to put in your cover letter what salary you're looking for? And the other question is, how do I know that the job is worth pursuing if they're going to be paying very low, but I don't find that out until way later in the process, and I can head that off at the pass by finding out their range at the beginning?
So let me deal with question number 2 first. And that is during the first conversation with the screener, when they're asking you how much you're looking for, you have the ability to say, you know, it's a little early for me to tie down to a specific number because I haven't met my future boss. I've seen a job ad or I've spoken to so-and-so, but I don't know what the team is like. I'm talking to you for 7 minutes. And I know if I give you a number, you're going to treat that as being cast in stone. Once I get further into the process, I can really give you a valid number. Can I ask you what the range is on this role, on your side? So you can do that with the screener pretty easily. Now, systems are a little bit different. You can try a TBD in the field. They may want a number. You can try the zeros thing, and you can do something close to what you think is valid. From there, once you get to the screener, you have the ability to say to them, because they're going to say something along the lines of, I see, from what you filled out for our system, you were looking for such and such. I want to be clear, you respond. I was forced to put that in. And I understand why, but I really don't know anything about the job. Go back to the previous answer. So that in this way, you're hedging. And the idea is, at some point you can say, I may think it's worth more, I may think it's worth less. But right now I don't know anything other than I've seen from a job description, which you got to admit is maybe 80% accurate. I haven't met my boss yet. I haven't met the team. I haven't heard details about the work from the people I'd be working for. So I don't want to get this locked in as a number. By the way, that's one of my later things, is the idea of getting yourself locked in on the number much too early without deflecting that to give yourself negotiating room later on. Did that help you, Anthony? A thumbs up works too.
Yes, it does.
Thank you. You're welcome. Scott, Robert, I'm just going to check with you to see if you got anything for me while I'm taking this pause and answer to Anthony's question. I have.
Comment from here.
You're good?
Yes.
Sounds like Robert's also good, so let's continue on. Let me just bring up my list here. Thank you very much. A classic, over or undervaluing yourself. Now, it puts you in a bind to undervalue yourself, because then when you discover what your real value is later on, you're fighting to get them to raise the price. It's kind of like when you go to the store and something's mismarked. If you were to bring it to the register and they went, oh, I'm so sorry, we can't sell it to you at that price. It's worth, we should have had that marked 20% higher. Your first response is to go, oh no, it says this, that's what I'm paying for it. You'd be right. On their side, all that happens is you miss an opportunity because you undervalued yourself. On overvaluing yourself, it's much the same thing. I used to see programmers who spoke to their friends who told them they should be making Y number of dollars more. And they weren't worth it. They were working with obscure skills that had no marketability. didn't communicate well, I could go through a lengthy list of problems that they had. If anything, they should have begged for the particular role that was involved, but they overvalued what they could deliver. Next one, and this is a fun one. You become intimidated by the firm's prestige, their place in the world, your title, or the interviewer's accomplishments, so that you psych yourself out in the process. I confess, I've had this happen with me with one gentleman I met who, he's a coach now. He's a globally recognized coach. And he used to be president of Manpower. And as a former recruiter, I go, ooh, ooh. And I bow to him, and he's brilliant, absolutely brilliant. It took me a year to get over being psyched out. And he did nothing. It was just me. And for so many people, for years it used to be, I'm getting an interview for you at Goldman Sachs. Ooh. Now it's Facebook or Amazon or whatever the firm of the day is that has that sort of prestige to it. And you psych yourself out and you're willing to give your power away to them. Now, my interview methodology is designed to help you recapture it. But when you get to the salary time and they say, we're offering you 10% less than what you were asking for, but you get an opportunity to work for us. Ooh, people cave to that because they think that name on the resume has value. It does, but it's not going to be valuable when you got to fill up your car. It's just the reality to it. So don't fall prey to the seduction of the brand name or the celebrity hiring manager or business owner when you're interviewing with them, okay? Next one. This is a classic. When does salary negotiation begin? I'm going to put it back in your hands, folks. When do they start negotiating salary?
After the job offer? After they've
Nope.
offered you the position? No?
No, not at the offer. Answer. The first time they ask you a question about salary, they're negotiating. Because they're, number one, confirming that you're within a price point for them. And it's why that hedge phrase that I mentioned earlier is so important. Unless you hedge your answer, they say, but for some people who, and I know that's not the case in New Jersey, but in case this winds up being online and someone from an area where it's still legal to ask about current salary is asked that question, how much you making, how much you're looking for. You always have to hedge your answer about what you're looking for, because otherwise the screener treats that as being the numbers. Because on their side, you have to understand what it's like to be a corporate recruiter. The worst thing that happens to you as a corporate recruiter is your client, the internal manager, yells at you. What are you doing with this person? They're an idiot. Or they don't want to work for that amount of money. Why didn't you catch that earlier? You don't want to put them in that position. You don't want to be in that position. You always want to communicate early on that it all depends on what you find. I'm going to detour for 1 second and say, on my YouTube channel and podcast, I do a weekly interview with someone. And when I interview people who work in corporate HR, and I say to them, job descriptions are 80% accurate, they laugh. And they laugh because, as one woman said, if we're lucky, they're 80% accurate. No one updates them. It's all recycled job descriptions for when someone gave notice and suddenly, a hiring manager calls over to their HR business partner or whoever their contact is in recruiting and goes, you got that job description we used to hire Lynn? Yeah, she just gave notice. So could you get it out onto LinkedIn, put it out to our vendor resources and see who you can get onto my calendar for Tuesday? No one debates them. So for you as the job hunter, you've always got to deflect the salary number question during the screener round, and even with the hiring manager, because often they're asking you questions about money pretty early on in the process when you don't know enough to be able to lock in on a number. So the classic thing about a negotiating mistake is whoever says the number first loses. I don't fully believe that. What I know is that having spoken to so many recruiters, they just want to tie you down and they're going to treat that as the number, and it's going to be tough to get them off of it unless you set them up early. Okay. Next one. Acting desperate. And with that, the variation on that is you seem nervous or anxious when you talk to them. I'm going to give you an example of seeming nervous. Well, I'd be looking for something in the area of you're breaking eye contact, you're doing your version of Macbeth and out damn spots with your hands, you're hyperventilating. I'll take anything. Desperate. Or you say words to that effect. They know they got you at that point. They could offer you 2 stones and a stick, and you'd say yes to their offer. So if you come across as being nervous or anxious or desperate when you're discussing numbers with them, you lose. You lose. Next one is, conversely, if you approach negotiations as though it's a cage match rather than a collaboration. And with that, you are fighting to the death. You are there. It's them or you. That's it. No winners. You're going to wind up losing, even if you get the money that you want, because they'll remember when you're on board that you extracted blood from the turnip. So watch out for fighting so hard you make enemies in the process and cost yourself once you join the organization. You can be as calm-spoken as I am right now and say things like, that's not going to really cut it. Could you do a touch better? I could say yes to a little bit more, but that number's it's not in the right ballpark. You know what the market is. All you got to do is go on to Glassdoor or PayScale. You know what the market is for what I do. Why are you coming in so low? Do a little bit better. I can say yes to more. And again, it's not just what you say that matters, but how you say it, because whoever crumbles emotionally first loses. That's where the real loss is. When you lose your cool, you lose the negotiation because they know they can beat you up or force you to walk out the door. They prefer you to stay, but they want you to stay on their terms. And if you say yes to the wrong number, you're going to wind up losing. Next one I have is not considering the total comp.
Jeff,
Now
can I ask
Sure.
another question, please?
Of course,
Okay.
you can ask all the questions you like.
Okay. I had a previous position where I had the conversation you just mentioned when I had already been at the job for over a year or close to a year. And I had this conversation with my manager. And basically, in the evaluation, I brought up salary. And I said, basically, the salary really is too low. And I had the numbers based on my research. And she came back with, well, according to my research, she had all these other numbers that justified this really low pay range. What do you do in a position like that?
Can I see where the source material that you got it from? If I'm wrong, I'll back down, which you won't do, by the way. But you got to give them something. Can I see the original source material so I could go take a look at it?
She showed me something, but it really didn't make sense to me. It really didn't.
Right. And that's the game plan. Part of what they're trying to do, it's a subtle form of intimidation.
Right.
So when she shows you the numbers, it's like, you know, when someone's terminated and they want you to sign the letter that says, you know, you're not going to sue us. They slide it in front of you while you're shocked. Well, on your side, you were shocked. Can I read that? Could you give me a copy of that, please, so I could read it where I'm not quite frozen? And could we circle back on this a little bit later on? And what you're doing is buying time. And can I guess what the original source material is on this? Because mine, I know where it is. It's on these websites. Where's your source material from? Because sometimes what they do is they contact HR people in other organizations. How much are you paying for such and such? And that's as much research as they do. They call 2 other firms, ask them what they're paying, and then they say this is the definitive guide to what you should be making at this level. Well, who says the other firms are honest about this? They may want to subvert the other organization by coming in with low numbers that are going to drive people out the door.
Which is exactly what happened.
Exactly right.
It's exactly what happened.
It's
So
all
many
very
people were part of the Great Resignation. That's exactly what happened.
So, you know, the Great Resignation has an extra dynamic with COVID to it. So people were frozen in place for a long time, and firms were losing money for a year plus. And then suddenly we all got vaccinated, or most of us got vaccinated. I am. You don't have to acknowledge, doesn't matter to me. It's your life and your choices. I'll just simply say for many people, they got vaccinated, they felt freer and easy to change jobs. Firms were desperate, right?
Right.
So for you, you did the natural thing. Okay, you're going to treat me badly? I'm out of here. Good. Because the reality is, who's in charge of your career? You.
Right. That actually wasn't my response. It was I actually stayed, but the relationship between my supervisor and I soured dramatically after that because of that. And the other question I just thought of was, if they are saying offering a different, what was presented to me as a different position, okay, would you insist that they give that position, put it in writing with the new salary of that position? Because they got real wishy-washy. You know, later on they said, oh, it wasn't really a position. It was really a project. And, you know, and his director was constantly waffling on what he wanted. And, you know, it was just a big mess. But I never got anything nor asked for it in writing. You know, because I had my old title and my new title. I was doing both jobs at the same time. So would you insist if somebody offered you something like that, that they put it in writing, that this is a new title, a new position with a new salary?
Yes, because one of the realities, and this is one of the hard things for most job hunters to hear, everyone lies in job search. It's also true that they lie once you're on board. It's manipulation. And thus, Ryan, welcome. And the result winds up being, who gets hurt? You. You get hurt. So you have the ability to say, I understand you want me to move over to a new group at such and such title. I've had friends who've heard the same thing. And then when they got into the new role, no title appeared, no salary increase appeared. So no disrespect. Could you put it in writing just like you were if you were making an offer to me? Oh, we don't do that. Maybe this should be the first time.
Oh, I like that answer. I like that, because they wouldn't put it. She did hedge on thinking about it, putting it in writing like that. But I should have came back with that. That's a good answer. Maybe this should be the first time.
And that's one of the ones I have later on my list
Oh,
about, no, we only offer 3% increases. Maybe there should be a time you change that policy. But
Thank
right
you.
now, you don't know enough about me to do anything other than quote company line, name, rank, and serial number. Remember, the goal here is to be a human being and not a robot and not a sheep. And when we give away our power to people, as they do, because they've got the title, they are important, they're a director, they're an MD, woo! You know, we tend to give up because we've been trained through the school system to be obedient little children. And we get to the workplace and it's the same thing. We're obedient little children taking orders and forgetting that we're adults and adult bodies. And we can be, maybe this should be the first time. They may think is snarky. Did you hear what Anthony said? He said, maybe this should be the first time. So what? So what are they going to do? Fire you? No. Because you asked them to confirm in writing what they told you orally? No. So by all means, speak up and protect yourself. You're the chairman or chairwoman of the board of an organization, the Banks Group, the Williams Group, the Wood Group. And as such, you've got shareholders. Even if it's just a pet, they're members of the board of directors. Your wife, husband, partner, whoever it is, the pets, the aunts and uncles, you them, and they want to know that you're taking care of yourself. And if you give up prematurely, you get hurt. It reminds me, again, when I did recruiting, a lot of what I did was technology recruiting. And so often, you know, firms would say, actually, let me not deal with those situations. There was a classic one of the old MetLife. You used to have a Honeywell environment programmed in English. That was the name of the programming language. Goldman has a proprietary programming language as well, or it did some years ago. Anytime someone says to you, got a great opportunity over in this Death Valley for all coders, where you're only going to work with our proprietary language, the next words out of your mouth should be, I don't think so. What else you got? And go to something that has marketability. Because if there's anything the last few recessions should teach all of us, is they do the right thing for the enterprise, as they should. I want to be clear, as they should. And you have to do the right thing for your enterprise too, and look out for your interests as well. So, how am I doing so far? Thumbs up, thumbs down? Okay. 2 thumbs up. Thank you, Anthony. Could go to my head. I like having things go to my head. Not considering the total comp for the role. This is a fun one. There was a guy I was coaching who was a director of marketing with a global brand. And he got an offer to be the chief marketing officer for another global brand. So it's a huge step up. The money was 70% higher on base, plus a larger bonus. And they'd relocate him back to the US with his family. But he could live in Germany, where he was living at that time with his wife and soon second child about to be delivered. And his wife was goading him to get this one little extra thing in the negotiation. And I'm going, you know, bulls make money, bears make money, pigs get slaughtered. You're really willing to give up that much money for something that is worth $250? Give it up. Let them feel like they got something from you, because you're going to be making that much more. He's doing great in his role. I was just seeing some of the pictures he's done online for new clothing that they're coming out with. And it's just fun seeing him with the big smile on his face. Now, I just want to check time because I was asked to complete by 7. So do you need a few additional minutes for wrap up? Just so I know.
No, you're fine. You're fine.
Okay.
We got started late. Yeah, we generally till 7:30, but you know, whenever
Just-
you feel comfortable.
I'll go a little past 7 and give you guys the chance for more. Okay. So asking the wrong people for advice is another one. You ask your aunt and uncle. You ask someone who really doesn't know a lot about what you do. They're successful at what they do. That's great. But they don't know your markets. And thus you're getting it, or God forbid, they're an old guy, an old woman, and you're asking someone who's got advice that's 30 years out of date. By the way, I'm over 70 now, so I can get away with that statement. As a result, asking the wrong people for advice can put you in the position of getting the kiss of death. So just be careful about who you ask for advice, okay? When you get to the negotiation, you don't practice. You just say it in your head. The words never come out of your mouth. And thus, you're winging it when you go into the negotiation. You know, people, just like on an interview, before you get on the phone with them, you want to practice what your rebuttals will be or what your responses would be given different variables. Now, whether you hire me to coach you about it, or you work with a friend, your wife, husband, partner who can guide you, doesn't really matter. You just need to practice saying these things instead of just winging it. Settling and not negotiating. Okay, I guess I'll say yes. Instead of saying, really? Huh. And then be quiet. Let the silence do the work. I'm just going to give you a sense of that one more time. They offer too little. And the first temptation is to go, okay. Instead, just go, huh. Huh. I'm going to need to think about it. Did you feel uncomfortable with those long silences? Because most people do. We live in a culture where we want instant response, and thus having that, hanging out there and letting the silence work for you. They know there's a problem. It's no secret. You don't have to tell them. You have told them just by being quiet. And then I like to think about it for a couple of days and circle back to you. If it's Tuesday, you say Friday. If it's Wednesday, you say Wednesday or later, you say Monday or Tuesday. What's wrong? You know, my first reaction is the money's a little low, but I want to think about it and circle back to you. Is that okay? Okay. No one's going to rescind the offer because he has to think about it for a day or two. And when you circle back to them, you can start the conversation by talking about everything other than the money, all the other things that you have questions about. And by the way, you do want to get the offer letter in writing, and you do want to get the benefits brochure from them, so you have a chance to review benefits in advance, and not just after you've said yes. If they say, we normally don't send out benefits until we have an acceptance. Anthony, what's the correct response? Maybe this time.
Well, maybe this is a good first time.
Right.
Now, does that apply also to the non-disclosure agreements and non-competitive clause? You should ask for those before
Absolutely.
you sign the offer and try to
Absolutely.
negotiate it. If they go, well, we can't compete with anybody for 6 months, and you go, can we reduce it to 3?
Right. that same guy that I mentioned earlier for the CMO role, he came to me and he was already at a phase of interviewing with this other firm. And I helped him get the offer following my interview framework. And that's when he tells me he's got a non-compete. Okay. And it's not a 3-month non-compete. It's not a 6-month non-compete. It's a 1 year. And they have to pay him a few dollars during that year, like $250 a week. Yeah. And he was not a guy making $250 a week. So that's when he disclosed. I said, do you think you might have told me sooner so we could have dealt with this? Notice I asked questions. So at that point, I said, find an attorney. See if this is breakable. Tell the other firm, the firm that's made the offer, other people have been able to get out of the non-compete. I'm going to try. His wife had worked for this firm. She had a non-compete. They let her out of it. Another person he knew, 6-month non-compete. They let him out of it. Him, they held it to. Firm waited. Amazingly, they waited. So, yes, you always want to see a non-disclosure agreement. Yes, you always want to see a non-compete. It's not like you're going to go on the internet and start a business based upon what you learn at the firm, but you just want to know what are the rules of the road. The surprises are really good. Who's ever surprised you by going, good news, we're going to pay you $20,000 more? Never happens. Now they'll always say, the guy who interviewed you, who you thought was going to be your boss, they're not here anymore. And you're going to be working for so-and-so now. And no one told you about that before.
That's exactly what happened.
I got you pegged, Anthony.
Oh, they're on vacation. You're going to be working for this person that I didn't interview with, and she and I butt heads like crazy.
He was a butthead.
Yes. That's a nice, eloquent way to put it. Yes.
I'm not dainty. So when you're in situations where someone's, especially last minute, throws a non-compete in front of you or an NDA in front of you and they haven't mentioned it before, is there some reason you didn't want me to know about this? Again, good question, because that tells you something by their response. Now, everyone signs this. Maybe the people who don't accept the offer don't sign it, and the ones who do accept the offer do. So I'd like to see it in advance. I'd like to see it before I commit to joining you. I'll have my attorney go through it. You don't need a lawyer, which tells you right away you need a lawyer. They tell us things not just by what they say, but how they say it and what they do. We have to recognize signals of behavior throughout the process. So yes, by all means, you want to see everything in writing. Anytime someone springs something on you last minute, they knew what they were doing. They knew exactly what they were doing. Another thing that people do is they're not clear about what they absolutely must have and what they're willing to give up going into the final negotiations. Thus, they're kind of making up their decision on the fly. As a result, you get hurt. You get hurt either because you reject an offer you should have taken, or because you accept something that you shouldn't have taken. So getting clear about what are the must-haves here. What are the things you can concede? which leads me to, at the beginning of your job search, one of the things you should do is sit down and ask yourself, what's most important to me in the next job or organization? What will I need to see or hear to believe it's a good choice for me? And make up a huge list, as long as you like, of all the things that are going to be important to you. Job, what kind of job it is, reporting structure, benefits, the whole thing. I've had people come to me with 2 pages of must-haves. And then I pause for a second and go, okay, prioritize the first 5 items on the list, which are number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4, number 5. What that does is the others become nice to haves, and that's great, but you get zeroed in on what's most important. So that these become items that they're going to have to give you a lot more for to give up. So again, when you start your search, one of the things to always do is to ask yourself, what's most important to me in the next job or organization? What will I need to see or hear to believe it's a good choice? And thus, when you get the offer materials, another mistake people make is you only spend a few minutes on them. You kind of look at the number's right, the title's right, don't go through everything else. For my friend, the CMO, there were 1 or 2 things slipped into the offer that he was not happy with, and we negotiated his way through, but they tried to pull a fast one on him about a small issue that it could have been very costly for him. So be thorough, read through. If it's the classic 1-pager that firms sent, just be aware of what it says and look for any phrases or sentences that could be, shall we say, ambiguously interpreted. Get clarity. I'm going to give you 2 more and then we're going to call it a night. Taking things personally. Now, people get so emotionally invested in getting the offer, getting the job, and that they take it as a personal affront that it's not perfect. That personal affront is a mistake on your part. If you've ever watched the Godfather movies, as I have so many times, there's a point where Michael Corleone, who's still the good boy in the first movie, is going to go and do the hit on the mobster and the police sergeant that attacked his father, Marlon Brando. And everyone in the room laughs. It goes, "What a nice college boy is gonna go into the family business. Bada bing, bada boom. He's gonna shoot these people dead in the head." Ah, yeah, right. You shouldn't take things personally. You shouldn't take things personally. And you know, Al Pacino is switching as a character when he looks up at his brother and goes, "It's not personal, Sonny. It's just business." It's just business, folks. You got to take things as they're trying to do their best to win on their side, and their job is not to babysit you. Your job is to look out for you, and it's just business. It's not personal. Last one for today. Let's see now. Oh, yeah. Give you 2. Okay. Number 1 is you don't negotiate. Thus, right away, you're saying, okay, sounds good. I'll say yes. And you don't try and get a little bit more. And now the final one, and this is I refer to as negotiating against yourself. Because when you're asked a question about the salary you're looking for, and then follow it up by saying, "But I'm willing to negotiate, or I can be flexible," they know that's not a real number. And that's an interview scenario. It's not at the very end, like when most people think, negotiation takes place. So when all is said and done, it's important for you to always remember who's your client? Who do you work for? Is your client major billion-dollar corporation or multi-billion-dollar corporation? No. You're the chairperson of the board of your own enterprise. And you got to look out for number one, or as Rodney Dangerfield said so eloquently at the end of Back to School, or you wind up stepping in number two. So with that, thank you for the opportunity to serve you, and I hope this is helpful to you.
Thank you so much. You know, you were saying about the must-haves and the nice-to-haves. I wish they wrote job descriptions like that. I really do.
Well, actually,
You
they
know,
do, but they
well,
do, but they never
not
update.
everybody. Yeah.
It's the word preferred.
Yeah.
Preferred is the nice to haves, but so often those preferreds are really requireds. And that's why I say it's one of the things that with job descriptions makes them inaccurate. Now, I'll also defend them by saying sometimes those are the tiebreakers. We've got three people who've got all the requirements. Which are the preferences that they have? And those become the tiebreakers between the different choices they have. But for the job hunter side, at the beginning of the search, before you're at the final stages, and you know you're going to have to make a decision, and you feel the pressure, because everyone feels the pressure. Before the pressure starts, you ask yourself, what's most important to me in the next job or organization? What will I need to see or hear to believe it's a great choice for myself? And that should be your North Star throughout your decision making. Because they're going to wave, bright, shiny objects at you, and you're going to be like, oh, because you're going to forget. That's what happens to most people. So they're going to say, got a great opportunity. It's a terrific team of people. This is going to be a great place for you. We see your strengths and we see your imperfections, and we can help you become great. I smell BS. And they get away with it, which is why they do it. So, my son is now 20. He turns 21 in February. And when he was little, he tried to pull numbers and triangulate my wife and I to get the right decision from whichever parent he could get the right decision from. Very smart kid. And eventually we learned, because we were older parents, my wife is 10 years younger than I, so she's 61. I'm about to turn 71. We figured out that this is what he was doing, and then we learned to check in with one another. But he was training us to get what he wanted. You've got to train them throughout your career. And part of the salary negotiation, part of the interview process is all part of you training them not to screw with you, that you're not one of those people who's going to be a sheep. There are going to be some jobs that you're not going to get because of that. Good. Because these are the places that will torture you. No one likes to hear it, but when you reflect upon your past and some of these jobs that you've taken, or consulting assignments, where consultants learn this very quickly. They squeezed $10 out of me and I gave them 100 back. So you just learn, don't buy their lies. They say a lot of stuff. Don't believe the bull. Any other questions?
Yes, I do.
Wonderful.
I feel like I'm taking over, but since you asked,
There's three of you in the audience. Feel free to monopolize.
Thank you. One is, and you probably already answered this, but you were saying don't say a number and then say, but I'm willing to negotiate. So when they're asking you for a number, what should you say?
And this, I answered this for you at the very beginning.
That's the
So,
range?
That's the range question. So
Okay.
you offer them a range, and then you hedge by saying, not that I'm willing to be flexible, because they're going to ask, what would you say the rock bottom base salary is exclusive of bonus that you might find acceptable to join the staff of our firm? How the heck do you answer that? I used to use that question on candidates all the time because I would get what their price was below which they would not say yes. So for example, 100,000. So you wouldn't take 98. I probably do 98. How about 96? Would you do 96? Hearing them hyperventilate. How's 95? No. Okay, 95 is. No. So you learn to put the pressure on because the job hunter doesn't do this all the time. The corporate and third-party recruiters do. So you've always got to push back and not let them lock you in.
Now, in that scenario, I didn't get who was saying the numbers. I didn't quite get that.
There was a corporate recruiter or a hiring manager that, during the pre-screening rounds.
And they're trying to see which number you'll go down, and you do say yes. You do say yes, 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 no.
Right. But you also come in and say, but understand, I haven't met with anyone yet other than you. And we've only been talking for 15, 20 minutes. I've seen a job description, which tells me certain flat information, but I haven't met my future boss. I haven't met the team. I haven't heard from them what the nature of the work is going to be. There's a lot I don't know yet. So before you think that I'm agreeing to that number, I'm not. I need to know a lot more.
Love that answer.
I like that approach. I
Love
like that a
that.
lot. I haven't heard that from other people yet.
Me
I really
either.
like that.
Of course
Yeah.
not. Of course not.
Will
Because
you come with me to my next negotiation, please?
my website address is thebiggamehunter.us.
Hold on,
And
write
I'll
that
come in.
down. What's it again?
Thebiggamehunter.us.
Okay.
You can schedule time for a coaching session with me. In case I don't remember who you are, just mention that you were here asking me lots of questions.
Okay, I'd like to think I'm an unforgettable person.
I'll come in like Rocco, willing to.
I love it. I love it. I wish I knew you when I started taking jobs, Jeff. I really do. Really do. I do have another question. You may think this is really silly, but in light of what you said, companies talk about teams and, you want to make sure they're the right fit and you're testing first for your personality in interviews. Well, if the job interview process is so, for lack of a better word, cutthroat, how are you supposed to go in with a positive attitude when they're trying to get the best out of you and you're trying to get the best out? I don't see this. See, I'm studying coaching in grad school. So when I'm sitting in front of somebody, I have a very different agenda, than the negotiation for a job. And it just seems it's very hard for me to think in terms of, wow, I want to join this team and give them my best and do all this when they're like trying to screw me. I don't see how to hold that positive attitude toward them.
So the idea is, we do so much by video these days. So from the very first time they meet you, you got to have the smile on your face and the twinkle in your eyes.
Let's try. So would you say have the smile on your face?
Sure. You have a smile on your face and the twinkle in your eyes, because part of one of the things they look for is care and passion for what you're going to do.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I'm going to start off by continue by saying I agree with you, but knowing the rules of the game, this is what you need to do. Everyone lies in job search. Candidates posture and, shall we say, inflate their capabilities most of the time. You guys can be exceptions, but having interviewed hundreds of thousands of people, they're posturing with me. On the other hand, and this took me a while to figure out when I was a beginning recruiter back in the Stone Ages, clients lie to job hunters. They also lie to recruiters, by the way, but they lie to job hunters. And I learned that because I've never, in all my years doing search and now in coaching, ever heard of a hiring manager ever say to a job hunter, you know, I got a problem here. And I just got moved into this role and I've inherited a team of imbeciles. And, you know, my predecessor got fired and so did hers. And it doesn't take a genius to figure out next in line, I need to hire someone to save my derriere. Have you ever heard of someone say that? No. Instead, they put on the happy smile button face. Yeah, that's a terrific team of people. They're wonderful. Have I mentioned we're like family around here? Like the ones in the holiday movies that want to kill one another. They don't say that, but that's the way it is. Nor do they tell you what happened to the last 4 people who sat at the desk you're going to be sitting at. Other than to say, oh, they went into something better. What does that mean? Well, the job we had sucked and they decided to go to a different place that would promise them something better and pay them more. Or the worst is, and where they wouldn't work for an abusive boss.
Say that again, please.
Or they wouldn't work for an abusive boss like me. No one ever says that, do they?
Right.
So recognize that, you know, I did a video about the 25 recently. So recognize that they're trying to persuade you, just like you are trying to persuade them. The third-party recruiter, if you're working for them, the good ones are only the messenger of the lies between the two parties. They're just relaying the lie.
You're messenger of the lies. Oh my goodness, I love
Those
that.
are the good ones. And the others are the ones that actually make up lies to get you to take the offer. So understanding this as I do, from having done this for more than 40 years, that's how long I worked in search. I filled more than 1,200 full-time positions, plus a variety of consulting assignments. I reviewed more than 750,000 resumes that we could quantify, interviewed hundreds of thousands of people as well. You know, people just are going to do this. And for you, what you need to do, like I coach employers to do with you guys, is I want to get you to get them off the script by becoming much more human in the conversation. Everything that you and I were talking about in response to your questions, Anthony, was really about humanity. It was a human response to a stupid institutional policy. Maybe this should be the first one. And they say that because it shuts most people up. Okay. So again, recognize that they've got a game that they play. It's like in the school system. Sit at your desk quietly and we'll dismiss you. Okay. And you know, you sit there, you raise your hand. This is what I did back in the Stone Ages at PS 114 in the Bronx. Raise your hand to be called on. You behaved a certain way so you can get good grades, so you can get into the good college. And then you get to the good college and they tell you get good grades. So this way you get the good job when you get out of college. And then you get the good job when you get out of college. And then you get fired because of an economic circumstance. And you go, what did I do?
Yeah.
No, I did everything you told me to do. And that's the way the system's set up.
Yeah. And in that scenario you mentioned, Jeff, about the person is about to sit in the seat and manage a horrible team, what should that person have done? Since nobody's telling him that that's what happened to the 3 predecessors. What should that person do, I guess maybe before he accepts to find out? What should he do? He or she do?
So on the interview, one of the final questions I have, and they work very well together. The first one is about, you know, what the expectations are going to be for the first 30, 60, 90 days after you join. That's a throwaway question because they know how to answer that one. So let's say I'm on board and it's a year from now. It's time to give me my first review. And I haven't just done a good job. You are thrilled with the decision you made to hire me. What will I have accomplished during that year that will make you think that way? Some people would respond by going, huh, I haven't thought about that. Run. Next bad answer is you hear something that's completely unreasonable. Run. So along the way, while you're interviewing people, you'll probably meet with members of the team. So tell me, I'm sure I'm not the only person who's done this job before. What happened to the last couple of people who sat at the desk that they're going to plunk me at? What did they do well? What didn't they do well? Why did they leave? And watch them first look at one another as though, like, you know, that look, you know, in the team interviews where they go, are we allowed to say that?
What'd you just say? They say,
They look at one another as though they're saying to one another, are we allowed to say that?
yes, yes.
And you know how to decode it.
Mhm.
So recognize that that's what's going on. I said, you know, I'm interpreting the looks at one another as being something was wrong. I'm happy to be wrong in that assessment, but just tell me what happened. Why did they leave? Why did their predecessor leave? Surprise, and you can say surprises are never good if I know what I'm stepping into, because every organization has problems. Let's just recognize that. If I know what I'm stepping into, I'm more likely to stay. But if
I
I'm
like that too. Yeah, that's good.
But if you surprise me, I'm going to be disappointed. It's humanity. It's everything I coach is about humanity. And connecting with people is key.
Expectations. Yeah.
What was that last thing, Jeff?
Everything I coach is about humanity
Uh-huh.
and connecting with people as people. As I said before, surprises are rarely good. So you don't want to be surprised. You want to know what you're stepping into. Thank you. Any last questions?
That was awesome. Thank you so much.
Yes.
That was awesome. I heard new stuff tonight, and I've been doing this a long time. So I really love what you said. It's terrific.
Not as long as I have.
All right. Well, thank you. I'm going to stop
Nixon
the
was-
recording.
Nixon was president when I started in recruiting.
Wow. How about that? How about that?
And Jeff, you can still feel positive about a company after going through all this? After going through all these maneuvers and the interviews and negotiations and everything?
Because it's not about the company, it's about the people. If I like the people, if I can relate to the people, if I can connect with the people, I can win. If I can't, I've got a problem. Because then I'm just going to work for a big bureaucracy that doesn't care about me. I know my boss is going to disappoint me. The first video I ever recorded was about the lies companies tell people. And I recorded this at a time when there was a recession going on. So everyone was nervous. And the classic thing is you go to your boss and you're hearing rumblings about the layoffs coming. You hear anything? You hear anything? They are so far removed from decision making about these things. They don't know, but they always say, don't you worry. It's all going to be okay. And they don't know anything. It's the placebo. So I don't put people in the position where they should lie to me. I try and cut through to the humanity, and where I don't get it, trust people then. I want to get to the human side, and it's got to come from me. And to quote an acronym from that coach I mentioned earlier, it takes courage to do this. You have to be authentic and ready to serve yourself and others. You've got to be truthful with what's important to you and show your heart, your love for people as well. And in this way, you can be effective. That acronym is CASTLE. Courage, authenticity. I'll wait for Lynn to catch up. Service, truthfulness, love, effectiveness. If you wear that on your sleeve in the course of your interviews, you will outperform everyone else because everyone walks in being professional. I'm an interview robot, just like the other 12 interview robots you've met. I'm going to get everyone off the script.
Can you repeat CASTLE? What's it
Courage,
stand for?
courage, authenticity, service, truthfulness, love, effectiveness. The acronym comes from a man named Lance Secretan, like secret with an A-N. The book I would suggest you read, and it's brilliant, is called The Spark, the Flame, and the Torch. And what the metaphor represents as a leader, your job is to identify the spark within someone and help draw it out so it bursts into a flame. So they can carry a torch into the world.
Spark the flame and the torch.
Right.
Wow.
So that way, that's what leadership is lighting a flame within someone so that you don't have to light a fire underneath someone.
Oh, wow. You must come with my next interview, please. I want you sitting right in the room with me. Wow.
You only got 7,000 interviews 7,000 videos to go through.
On your website?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's the YouTube channel. I've got close to 12,000 posts on the website and the blog.
Wow.
And by the way, if you like today's presentation, I would appreciate it. On LinkedIn, there's a company called JobScan, and they are doing a survey, best coaches for 2022. There's a woman there who is, when you see the listing, it'll be for 2021, but as soon as you click it open, it'll say, it's that time to work on the 2022 list. So if you would nominate me, that would be great.
Yeah, okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. So I think when you're about the things you're saying, when you're interviewing, you ask not only to meet the boss, you ask to meet your future teammates, which I have never been bold enough to do.
Meet the people I'll be working with. After all, they could be psychopaths.
Yeah, you got that right.
And if they don't want you to meet your peers, and again, I don't know the kind of work that you do, but if they don't want you to meet your peers, what's the message in that?
Why not? Yeah, run. They're hiding something in the basement. Bodies in the basement.
Lance is the former president of Manpower that I mentioned earlier.
Oh, okay.